Wait for this matchup. That is the Niners and the Eagles, the showdown, a rematch of last season's NFC title game. Brock Purdy tearing his UCL in the opening drive. Hassan Reddick right there with a big tackle. And the Niners weren't able to recover, losing 31-7. At one point, they used Christian McCaffrey at quarterback. Both sides are ready.
It irks me. I'd be lying if I said, it irks me, but we have to learn to kind of put that aside. It's probably my biggest takeaway from the KC game was just, I had to learn how to let last year go and focus on the game plan and execute.
Am I going to go into the game saying I want revenge and all this kind of stuff? It's not like that, So I'm just going to try to go do my job and be the best Brock that I can be for this team.
Last year, it's over with. Neither team finished the job, so it's not like they're looking back and reminiscing on an NFC championship win. We both have aspirations to win Super Bowls.
Last year's last year. This year's this year. This is a really good football team on the road, and just we got to execute. You got to show up and be ready to go and execute whatever play's called.
Well, it looks like there's a good chance we'll get a repeat of last year's NFC Championship game. According to ESPN Analytics, the Niners currently have the highest chance of reaching the NFC Championship game at 64%. The Eagles close behind at 63%. Could be a battle here. Home field advantage, the winner on Sunday. NFL insider Jeff Darlington with us with much more. All right, take us through some injury updates for the Eagles. And let's start with tight end Dallas Goedert.
Such a great game here, Kevin. I really thought Dallas Goedert might actually wind up playing because of the fact that he showed up to practice at all this week. But ultimately, he is going to be listed as doubtful for this game due to the forearm fracture that he had suffered. Missed the last 2 games. Again, a good sign that he's back on the field, but it looks like it's going to take him another week before he actually is playing in games. So looking more like the Cowboys game than the 49ers game. So still tracking is a good sign. Lane Johnson no longer having an injury designation at all with his groin injury, full participant in practice. So he is good to go, good to play in this game. Obviously also a critical component to this offensive line. We talk about these injuries facing the Eagles team, and we're talking about 3 of them right now. Johnson, though, a huge addition to that offensive line after not being able to play in this last game against the Bills. That third injury I'm talking about here, Fletcher Cox, doesn't look as good for him just because he hasn't practiced all week, but we should point out that he's being listed as questionable. Mentioned that Goddard is listed as doubtful, so he's already getting that tag. Fletcher Cox, they're still holding out hope that he can find a way to play in this game. Again, though, hasn't practiced all week after leaving the game with that groin injury. We'll keep a close eye on that one. Obviously, one of the deepest positions in the league when it comes to the defensive line for the Eagles, so they can still make do without him, but certainly would rather him in the lineup.
Yeah, when they
Are you surprised that the Eagles are underdogs at home?
No, I'm not. Not whatsoever, because of what we've seen Philadelphia do in first halves of games. Like if we talk about the comeback kids and what they've been able to do in majority of these 10 wins and having the opportunity to come back in the second half playing better than the team in the second half. Mad Dog, the reason why I believe this, because I don't think you can get behind 2-3 touchdowns to the 49ers and think that you're going to make a run like that. I think this front, D-line-wise, is too good for you to think that you're going to play with a lead. Play this team with a lead and you're going to be able to come back from 2 or 3 touchdowns down. So I'm not shocked that they are underdog because of that only. Now, I would be shocked if it was just a blown away, they going to win the game and it was a foregone conclusion. That's different. But to be a 3-point dog at home based on what you've done in first halves of games to the 49ers and the way they play when they fully healthy, I'm not shocked at all.
When we talk about the 49ers and the Eagles, I'm not surprised at all that the Eagles are underdogs because when you consider the way the 49ers have played over the last 3 weeks, since Debo and Trent Williams have come back, the level of dominance that they've showed against stiff competition, including Seattle and Jacksonville in the mix, we got to give them love for that, and Tampa. But then also you got to take this into consideration as well. The Philadelphia Eagles have been down by double digits. Here's the one thing that I think that we all need to pay attention to. Interesting stat that I throw at you, Doggy, because this might influence your betting this Sunday.
I don't know where to go with this game. Go ahead.
Jalen Hurts has the NFL's best passer rating in games where his team is tied or trailing. 71% completions, 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Brock Purdy has the worst in the same situation.
Yeah.
When he's trailing or tied, Brock Purdy's numbers are not
Decrease.
what they were when he's got a cushion.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts gets better
Good stuff.
under adverse conditions. Brock Purdy gets worse.
That's a good
So
step.
now what we have to take into consideration is, what are you saying with the 49ers being favorites? What you're saying is they're going to get out to a lead.
Yep.
And Philly ain't going to be able to
come back. Yep.
They ain't saying San Francisco's going to be at a deficit and they're going to come back. They're saying San Francisco is going to get a lead and Philadelphia ain't going to be able to overcome it. You're going to bite off to a bit too much more than you could chew this particular week. That's what Vegas essentially is saying.
I think that they're right to be favorites. I've thought about this a bit because I do think these teams are very evenly matched. This is, as you said, very likely a championship preview, depending on how things shake out. They are the creme de la creme of the NFC, along with probably Dallas. However, when I was doing my matchup preview on my podcast, Meet a Kime Show, which Dominique features on for this week, I found it instructive because as I was looking at the matchups and thinking about this game, I found myself approaching it from the standpoint of how do you poke holes in the 49ers? Whereas with the Eagles, I was like, okay, here are the issues with this team. Sometimes in the first half, the offense feels a little bit disjointed. Defensively, I would attack the middle of the field, linebacker, which Kyle Shanahan's obviously the master of. There are issues. They're a very, very good football team, but there are flaws. Whereas with San Francisco, you have to really dig around to try to find the things that the Eagles can attack. And I think they can. I want to be clear. But if you're thinking about it from the standpoint of do they deserve to be favorites, I think the fact that you're constantly in that position with the San Francisco 49ers trying to find their very few weaknesses is revealing of why Vegas favored them even though they're on the road.
Yeah, it boils down to, I think, a lot of our reason why we feel confused by that is because the quarterback, we obviously trust Jalen Hurts more. It's the quarterback. I think it's the pedigree of the team having been to the Super Bowl last year and what we've seen them do recently, and they're at home. But all those things, I think, you could go either way on this bet, but it makes for a really exciting, interesting game. The big question about the 49ers, or at least the one criticism that you can level against the 49ers fairly, is we haven't seen their quarterback in the late game heroics the way that we've seen Jalen Hurts. I was doing some prep for this, looking up stats of non-play action passing for Brock Purdy. He's still pretty damn good. But the question is non-play action passing when we know that's what you have to do and you're down one of your playmakers or your tackle. Those are the next steps that we haven't seen from him and Kyle Shanahan, to be fair. If we're going to give Shanahan all the credit for scheming the offense, you better scheme up some in these tough situations too.
Yeah. But he's not missing anyone, right? At least unless I forgot something. I think everybody's playing. And to your point, though, this is exactly it. During the losing streak and whatever, there was some turnovers, but also I think, and this is true of all Kyle Shanahan and his Trees offenses, they look different when they fall behind. I think the question is are the Eagles capable of going up on them, especially, again, given how that offense has looked in some recent game, really throughout the season? I think they're capable of it. I think if they really commit to running the ball, controlling the line of scrimmage the way they're capable of against a slightly sus San Francisco run defense, then I think it could get interesting. But they cannot Philadelphia cannot fall behind. You cannot fall behind to this buzzsaw.
That's fair of everybody.
Also, is it kind of fair that, obviously Purdy was worse without Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, but Jalen Hurts has also struggled without Lane Johnson. So it's kind of just an underrated part of it. If you're missing one of the best offensive linemen in the world, your protection gets worse. Yeah,
Again, it's probably recency bias, but he didn't struggle without Lane Johnson last week.
Half,
so, he led a immaculate game-winning drive in those moments. So, I think you're right. Over the course of the entire game last week and over the course of his entire career, it matters. That O-line is incredibly special, and I do think, as cliche as this is, the matchup to watch.
That's what I was
O-line versus